Many people believe that God is responsible for the pain that they walk through. So they blame him for their suffering and say, well, if God is so powerful and sovereign and in control, then why did he let this happen? And I get it. When I went through my divorce, I completely turned my back on God. I blamed him for allowing it to happen. How could he do this to me? I had served in ministry for years. I was a good person. I didn't deserve this. And well meaning Christians didn't help much either. Hearing that God works all things out for good didn't comfort me when I was in the midst of grieving over the loss of the family that I had always dreamed of. In fact, many of us use that verse, Romans 8:28, to explain away all of the painful situations that life brings and reinforce the belief that God is in control, which is essentially making him responsible for the pain, abuse, and suffering that we went through. It wasn't God's will for me to get divorced, but he gave me free will to choose who I marry and gave us each free will to make our own choices inside of that marriage. If we believe that God is in control and uses painful situations for our good or to teach us a lesson, it sounds really good. But if a father walks up to his little girl and breaks her arm and then says, I'll take you to the hospital and I'll comfort you. And then we'll come home and I'll get you some ice cream and we'll watch movies together and we'll just spend the rest of the day together. That's not a loving father. If we think that God is responsible for the pain and abuse that we went through, and he's using it to teach us a lesson so that he can come through and be that loving father, it actually makes him abusive. And yet, that's how a lot of us view God, with this broken love. In fact, it's more common for most of us to see him as an irrational and hard to please father, as opposed to the merciful and loving daddy that he is. That's because so much of our projected image of God is actually a reflection of our own parents and teachers and religious leaders and what they represented to us. So we see this dualistic guy that has two different sides. William Paul Young, the writer of The Shack, and if you haven't watched that movie, I can't recommend it enough. But he said, it took me all of 50 years to wipe the face of my father completely off the face of God. If you grew up feeling that the love that you received from your parents, and especially from your father, was conditional on your behavior, you will see God in the same way. But God is love. He doesn't love us when we do XYZ or if we get our lives together. He loves us, period. Your heart needs that love and faces that represent that love to your hurting heart that hasn't yet healed. How much of our projected image of God is what our parents or religious leaders represented to us? Our perspectives skew our theology and beliefs because of the experiences that we had with our parents. We projected our experiences with love onto God. And those experiences then become the filter that we have when we talk to God and think about God and look at scripture. That's why it's important for you to get new experiences and help you see through encounters where love has been available for you in your life. And even if you can't get to a place where you see that that love was present in your life, we can still create new experiences where you are partnering with heaven, where you're partnering with truth and love. And you can use your imagination and trust that the Spirit of God is in it, and trust that love is available to you so that you can actually get love in tangible ways in your life. We're often told by well-meaning people that the bad things that are happening in our lives are just all a part of God's plan and will for our lives. The Lord's Prayer says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Why would we even need to pray that if everything that happened on earth was God's will and God ordained? The truth is, God didn't put you in those situations. We live in a broken world, surrounded by broken people, and yet he was there, loving you and hating that you were going through that. It grieved his heart more than your heart was even grieving. He was with you, and he never wanted that to happen. He will use it for good, but he didn't put you through that in order to use it for your good or to use it to teach you a lesson. So many of us grew up with a view of God's sovereignty that says everything that happens is God ordained and that he is in control. But I believe that's a misunderstanding of Scripture. The Bible does say that his ways are not our ways, that he is our strength, that we shouldn't be afraid or discouraged. But nowhere does it say that he is in control. It says that he is sovereign, that he has supreme authority and absolute power over all things. But he has given us the power to make our own choices. He gave us dominion over the earth, and we chose out of that every day. If we believe that he's the one who's responsible for death, disease, and destruction, and also the one who comes to heal and give us an abundant life full of joy and love, that would make God divided against himself. But he is unchanging. He gives us free will. But we have trouble wrapping our minds around that, especially when we hear about God's perfect will. Some people are so scared to make decisions about where to move or what career path to take because they're afraid that those decisions can place them outside of God's perfect will. We think of it like this tightrope that we have to walk, and one wrong move and we're going to get off the path and ruin everything. His will is perfect, but ours is not. And he gave us free will to choose. Think of it like a choose your own adventure book. He has laid out every single choice in every situation in our entire lives, hundreds of thousands of different scenarios for each and every day. And he's like, take your pick. No matter what journey you choose, I am with you to the end. Think about that for a minute. He planned out every possible scenario. The only way you can screw this up is if you shut the book and refuse to participate.